You know, there's a phrase from 60s advertising. It's not the steak, it's the sizzle. Have you ever heard
I
that?
have.
Okay, well, then you're old.
Hello and welcome to Did I Do That? It's a podcast about making graphic design and making mistakes because it's all part of the process. I'm Sean Schumacher, and joining me today, a very special guest out here at Bend Design in Bend, Oregon. She's an author, designer, painter, and educator. She does work across animation, product design, typeface design, and more. And her illustrations have appeared in The New Yorker, The New York Times, The Atlantic, The Wall Street Journal, Vanity Fair, and more. And her most recent book, How to Make Mistakes on Purpose, is all about the creativity that comes from making mistakes. So, like, perfect fit for this show, I would say. It's Laurie Rosenwald. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome. Thank you for being here. You just got out here last night.
At 3 a.m. this morning.
You arrived at 3 a.m. this
Yes.
morning. And flight went very well and very smoothly. Things went
Perfectly well, Sean, that it did not. And they lost my only bag, which contained my computer, all my
What?
clothing, and everything I need to teach my workshop. But never mind.
That's not the horrible type of thing that an airline would do. Airlines are known to be good and trusting and thoughtful and full of just helping individuals.
Have you flown United?
No, and I don't know that I actually ever have flown United.
This podcast, by the way, is sponsored by United. Is that not correct?
Oh God, you're right. Oh no. So yeah, we better think of some ways to make this story sound a little better. They've got their entire Bend staff looking for your bag right now.
My bag is transparent. It's rather unusual. It's clear plastic, and that listed. I got somebody else's ticket or receipt or whatever you called it, and it was going to some place that I'd never heard of called Ontario, California. But let's not dwell on that. It may be that my real transparent bag is on its way back to Bend, Oregon, which is, I believe, where I am. So let's talk about more pleasant things.
Yes. So you're staying downtown, and it's funny because I was downtown yesterday as soon as I got in. And I parked in the parking structure that's connected to that hotel. Not, I have an electric car, so you have to hunt down the stations. It's like an alternative reality game where you're trying to find something in reality to make your car go. It's really fun and not at all annoying. But like right on top of that parking structure, there's an electric car charger. And what I didn't realize when I parked there was that after a certain time of day, that parking structure becomes a Fast and the Furious movie. There's like, kids who are like racing cars in the parking structure. It's very weird.
Will that happen tonight?
I don't know. I wonder.
Because I'm looking for something to do.
Well, if you want to hang out with some kids who are racing cars.
About what time was this?
This was like 6, I want to say.
6 at night?
Yeah.
That's early.
It's pretty early, but I have a suspicion, and this is something that I know the Fast and the Furious movies helmed by Vin Diesel, who himself, I believe, is in his 50s now. Kind of forget, but it's a very young scene. So young that I suspect many of the people engaged in the Fast and the Furious thing were people who had curfews at home.
Yeah, because it seems a bit tame.
Yeah.
And it could work out for me. I'm fast, but not furious.
Can you Tokyo drift?
I don't know. What is it?
I'm not sure. I don't think I really took away what it was from that movie.
I've never seen that movie or any movie like it.
Really?
No.
What kind of movies do you enjoy?
Well, mostly television. I'm addicted to certain television shows. And in fact, I had a question for you.
Yeah.
There's one of them that I love is 30 Rock.
Oh, yes.
And there's a scene where, as a penance, somebody has to wear a shirt made out of pubic hair or
oh God.
Yeah. Or you have to say, "Did I do that?" which is some kind of catchphrase on some TV show, I believe, that I've never heard of.
Family Matters?
Okay, I've never seen Family Matters.
That was the epicenter of the Urkel experience.
So you have to use the Urkel catchphrase, "Did I do that?" or pube shirt. So I wondered whether your podcast was named after that catchphrase.
It is. It
Okay,
is.
thank
I
you.
mean,
Because it's the only time I've ever heard it was on 30 Rock, which is one of my shows that I'm addicted to, along with several others, like, obviously Seinfeld, Curb Your Enthusiasm, things
yeah.
like that. That's the kind of thing I like to watch.
I mean, classics all. Yeah, it's funny. I think this is the first time that it's actually come up, the title. But yeah, I think Urkel was the inspiration, but that was also a phrase that was just everywhere for a long time. And what I loved about it, to get back to kind of our mutual research, is it's sort of about making a mistake and then trying to deflate it a little bit, which, feels like a good thing. Like Urkel, he's a genius. He's very smart, but
if you say
he's
so.
not perfect.
Yeah. I don't know the guy.
He, at one point, he invented a robot version of himself. And then at another point, he invented, I believe it was a machine. Part of me thinks it might be a potion also, but I think it was a machine that turned him into a cool version of him called Stefan Urkel. This is not knowledge that is useful
Is
at
that
all.
connected to Pilsner Urkel?
I strongly suspect it is not. Although it is the kind of cool drink that Stefan Urkel might drink. And would be able to drink, because I think in real life, the actor who played Steve Urkel was in his mid-30s by that point.
This reminds me of a Venn diagram I've been trying to create that I've had a lot of trouble with. Maybe you can help me.
Yes.
Considering the Pilsner Urkel 30 Rock podcast connection with the pube shirt. But there's a Venn diagram in my brain with, on one circle is the architect I.M. Pei, who I think he died about 2 years ago.
Yes, famous modernist architect.
Yes. And then there's a Sharpei, the very wrinkly dog. And then there's a Sharpie, the marker.
Yes.
And then there's a Harpy, the flying, bare-breasted bird.
Yeah, mythological creature.
Yeah. Maybe you can help me? Do you think so?
Yes. Well, I think there's not a lot of overlap between I.M. Pei and the Sharpei, because they're...
Well, the spelling, P-E-I.
True, but I.M. Pei, everything very sharp edges, very geometric. Sharpei,
like a Sharpie.
Very much like a Sharpie.
Sharpie.
I think Sharpie might actually be, if we're imagining that this is like the two circles of I.M. Pei and Sharpei are on the other side, I think Sharpie might be the thing in between, because you can get really wild with it, but then you can get very precise.
Indeed. Well, if you have, I don't have anything to do with the thin nib Sharpies.
No.
To me, that's not a real Sharpie.
No one wants that.
No.
You just use a pen.
I'd sooner not discuss it.
They're terrible.
Do you know another thing that happened that caused this debacle with my luggage? You're not going to believe this, or maybe you will. Tiny design flaws can make a huge difference.
Yes.
There was a luggage tag that I use when I live in Sweden, which I have a special Swedish phone number. And I hadn't looked in. It's the kind you have to sort of open up and take apart and unfold a piece of paper to read it, which I didn't bother to do. And I thought, just to be sure, I'd better use one of those United, the giveaway little paper thingies.
Elastic.
Yeah. No, it's not an elastic. It's a thing that folds onto itself. So I took a couple of those from the United counter while I was in San Francisco with my bag, which I was carrying onto the plane, I thought. And I was going to write my phone number on it. But guess what? It was very shiny coated paper. Oh. And I only had like a really crappy, I didn't have a Sharpie with me. I have a keychain with a mini Sharpie, but it's for my house keys that I didn't bring. So I had no Sharpie. I had a regular stupid ballpoint pen, and it did not write at all on the luggage tag. So they make these shiny luggage tags that you can't write on. So I said, oh, the hell with it. It'll probably be okay. And then when I got to the plane, they said, you have to check it. It's full. And I said, I really don't want to. I want to keep it with me. They said, you can't. So there it went with the possibly Swedish luggage tag who knows where it is now.
Off to Ontario or other...
Ontario, California, or possibly Gothenburg, Sweden,
Yeah.
where I live partly.
I'm choosing to imagine also that there's just like Canadians who are showing up in Ontario, California airport, just like, oh God, this happened again. I wanted the other one. Yeah. I feel like the design of those tags and the whole way of getting them is such a mess. Like United at least had them at the counter, it sounds like. But I feel like...
Well, it's kind of an esoteric... I mean, if they have them in the counter and you can't write on them, are they luggage tags?
A true Zen cone, if I've ever heard one. But like, I feel like Southwest, it's just like on the little stanchion as you're walking up, and there's no place to write. So you're like holding them in your hand, trying to write on your hand.
Indeed.
That's not anything.
That
The
was just
handwriting
one
from that is not
tiny
gonna...
detail, but it could make a huge difference.
Yeah. Uncoated paper.
Yeah.
It's
not that
cheaper
much
in a
to
lot
ask.
of cases.
They could coat it on one side.
Yeah. Yeah. C1S. That's very easy. It's, again, cheaper.
I am a professional graphic designer. I know that this can be specified.
Yeah. And you would think for the run size that they're going to make on these luggage tags, they could certainly...
I can't be the only one that's had this problem.
No. You also do have to wonder, though, like, is that just such a bad work environment that no one can really focus?
But I don't think there is a person
Yeah.
at the end of this line. So, like many things now, everything is just anonymous and there's nobody to talk to about it.
Yeah.
But you can talk to me about anything. What should we talk about?
What's happening with you lately?
Well, let's see. I decided to give up in general.
Okay.
About 3 weeks ago, I was almost 3 months in Sweden, which for me is normal. Although I used to be 6 months a year in Sweden for 23 years. So I was living there about half the time. And now I didn't get a residency, a green card there. I tried and I couldn't. So now I'm just 3 months maximum, like any tourist. So I had a painting studio there. I made a lot of paintings and I came back on August 30th, or was it 31st? Anyway, the next day, September 1st, I had to hang a show, which included a lot of the paintings that I brought in my suitcase, which I did have with me, that I made over the summer. And it was a huge effort. It's a show called Spring Break, and I paint in caustic, which is beeswax, melted beeswax. It's a very ancient technique. I tell people, it's like the Fayum mummy portraits from Egypt. I say, you might not like my paintings, but they will last 2,000 years, whether you like them or not. So it's kind of interesting in our ephemeral digital world to have something, I paint on wood and it will last forever.
Yeah.
And they're really good paintings. And I hung a beautiful show, and it was part of the Spring Break show, which is kind of known to be the crazy, wild, daring, young art fair. And they have it in LA and in New York. And, you have to be with a curator. Anyway, it's a long story. But so I'm glad to be included in this show because I don't have a regular gallery or anything. And I've sold, not great, but I've sold 3 or 4 paintings, every time I've done it. This time I sold nothing.
Oh.
And the worst thing was that, it was such a stress to hang the show the day after I got back from Europe, and I had to paint the booth yellow. It's a whole to-do.
Oh, God.
Anyway, it was a lot of, heavy lifting, literally, on my part, and driving around my paintings and So I had to be there from 11 to 8. Every day for 6 days. I had nobody else to man the booth.
Oh,
it was my,
God.
and nothing came of it. And then I've had a lot of, let's just say, bad luck in the publishing world. I realized only the other day that my book, which has the wonderful title of All the Wrong People Have Self-Esteem, came out in September 2008, the week that Lehman Brothers crashed. And
That's not ideal.
my new book, How to Make Mistakes on Purpose, published by Hachette, came out the week that Omicron came. So I did a major mailing of the real book, over 200 books that I mailed to important book reviewers and editors, etc.
Yeah.
None of them got it because nobody was in the office.
Oh,
And
God.
so it didn't get reviewed and the whole thing tanked. I'm still trying to make it be a success. And then I thought, nah, I think I'll just give up. I'll give up. I'm going to keep painting. No, listen, it's not a joke. I'm going to keep painting. I'm going to keep writing. I'm going to keep designing
Yeah.
and drawing and doing all the things that I do.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to try to get anyone to notice them or see them. I'm going to stop Instagram. I'm going to stop everything I do to, try to get things out in the world. I'm 67 and, I've never used an emoji. Let me put it that way. I don't like doing things that other people do. By definition, I just can't. I never use the word awesome. I am basically allergic to anything that's popular or successful. So it's probably not surprising that I haven't had much commercial success, even though I have to admit that creatively, I feel extremely successful because all of the books that I've published and all of the things that I've ever done are things that I totally believe in
Yeah.
and are funny and beautiful and really good. Beyond that, it's out of my control, whether people notice them or like them or don't like them. I'm just going to give up trying.
Well, that's I think there is something very meaningful to that, and I think we as a society, I think, and especially as creatives, tend to lean way too hard into external validation. Like, oh, like I see it in my students, like, oh, I put my thing up and it's not getting enough likes. Or even grades. I mean,
Well, you
grades are
see,
such a
it's not that
trap in
that's
that.
the byproduct now. That
Yeah.
is the product.
Yeah.
That unfortunately, there's a phrase from 60s advertising. It's not the steak, it's the sizzle. Have you ever heard
I
that?
have.
Okay, well, then you're old because it's a very old expression. But it's very apt because, I'm all steak and no sizzle. Nobody's talking about what I'm doing. Nobody cares. I'm completely outside the loop or whatever you want to call it. Now if it's the only thing that matters is if you have, at least 100,000 followers, otherwise you don't really show up on the radar.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if radar even exists, but if you don't show up in, it's not just a question of ego, like your students wanting to be liked or people liking what they do.
No,
No,
yeah.
it's a survival because, art directors, creative directors, the people with the purse strings, they're looking at how many followers people have, not at what they do. Do they like the painting is completely beside the question.
Yeah.
Do they think that you're a good writer? It doesn't matter. How many followers do you have? That's all that matters now. And frankly, I'm sick to death of it. So I'm going to stop complaining right now and, focus on, I'm just going to keep painting and hopefully I'll be dead soon and I won't have to worry about it.
Oh, God. Well,
Well,
I hope you're not
relatively
dead
soon. I
soon.
figure if I'm lucky, I got another 20 years and I don't want to spend it trying to get people to notice me. I'd rather
Yeah.
spend it making cool stuff.
Yeah. How much of all of our lives do we waste chasing that stuff? And like you said, there's
More than we used to.
more
I'll
than
tell
we
you
used
that.
to. And, like it gets valued more by people who are making decisions. So there's like a power element to that, like you were talking about. But like, it's not fun and it drains the creative side, which is the thing that you're supposed to be nurturing.
Yeah, I want to spend all of my energy on, I'm so lucky. I know in spite of all of these setbacks, I'm very lucky because I've managed, at least until now, to make a living, not a great living, but I keep body and soul together by teaching, which I love, by painting, by writing. I've never done jobs just for money, which 99.9% of everybody has to do,
Yeah.
things they really do not enjoy and do not challenge them or not original, not fun. I mean, I've done really original work and really, surprising and daring, and I've lived all over the world and done all kinds of fun stuff and had all kinds of adventures. And, I never thought about money. I never thought of, I mean, I don't have any children to support. And if I did, they'd be barefoot and starving because I'm very selfish.
Well,
I on purpose, I didn't, marry the right guy, uh, or make any of the choices that I could have made to have a family life and all that. I made choices so that I could have fun and be creative
yeah.
and do what I wanted and be free. And that's what I've done. And I'm still doing that. So how many people can say that?
Not many, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
So I think I'm lucky.
absolutely.
I have a pretty good life.
So I'm curious, like, what sort of got you into this field? What got you into your creative practice originally? Like, has this always been something that you did from childhood, or?
Yeah. No question about it. I mean, my father was a sculptor, and I come from a family that values art above pretty much everything. There's basically two types of people. There's people, okay, what happens, and the reason I teach my workshop is exactly this. When you're like 3, 4, 5, you're drawing. All little kids draw. I think
Yeah.
even still with crayons or whatever. And why are they drawing? Just because it's fun. It's fun to draw and make your mark, right?
Yeah.
You're not trying to solve a problem when you're 3. You're just scribbling because it's fun. And then when you're 7, somebody says, that doesn't look like a dinosaur.
Yeah.
And then you're screwed for the rest of your life. And in some way you give up or you stop. And then that's most people. And then other people keep drawing anyway, even though it doesn't look like a dinosaur. They just like to draw and they keep drawing. So what I want to do is bring that feeling back. And the workshops that I teach, they really do that because the results are absolutely immaterial. The action, I always say quantity, not quality. You're not trying to make a good drawing. You're not trying to make a good anything. You're trying to do 100 things in a hurry. And that makes a huge, huge difference in the way you feel. Your feeling is, you want to keep up. I say, draw a pig, draw a cow, draw a lamp, draw a microwave, or whatever it is in a hurry. And even though I sort of like to keep it a secret that we're drawing in the workshop, because I don't want people to think that my workshops are drawing workshops.
Yeah.
We might as well be flipping burgers. It really doesn't matter. The fact is, I use drawing as just one way of getting people to not focus on making one good thing, not focus on success or results, but just try to keep up. And they make the most beautiful work you have ever seen, especially people in, finance, in pharmaceuticals. I've done the workshop for Johnson and Johnson. Not one of them was an artist or designer. And those are the people that have the most fun, and they realize immediately nobody can see or care what they're drawing.
Yeah.
If they're the world's greatest artist, it's not a good day for them to show off. And if they can't draw at all and never draw, they realize in about 2 seconds it doesn't matter and nobody cares, nobody's watching. And there's never a crit. I never look at the drawings again. I never say, oh, that really communicates, blah, blah, blah. You've done a great job. Or I never say, oh, that's really not working. I don't say anything. It's just make a lot of stuff, and then you ask. It's a little bit like your podcast in that the question is not did I do that, but in a way it's similar because the question you ask is, oh, what could this be? So there's a big, big difference between the question, oh no, what am I going to do? Which is where you end up when you have problem solving, which is fine, but very stressful. And you have something in front of you already. It's already done. And you go, oh, what could this be? It's positive. So what happens in my workshop is the opposite of problem solving, because what happens with problem solving is, like as an illustrator, I would get some brief from an art director at magazines, which are these paper sort of booklet things that people used to read.
I've heard of them.
Yeah, they were very popular back in the day. And
I think I read a BuzzFeed
most
article
of my
about them.
clients were magazines, and they would say, oh, we need, a portrait of blah, blah, or, the 5 basic food groups or something. And, whatever it was, you would think if you're somebody like me, who's a very judgmental, what should I say? C word. Uh,
You can swear
um,
if you need to.
no, I prefer not to because it's so popular. I don't use profanity in any of my books because it's too common.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm a very judgmental person and very critical and very negative. So I think that most people are stupid, including most of the art directors I've ever worked for. And the assignments are stupid and everything's stupid. So that's a very sad and lonely place to be. But when I look at the brief and I go, oh, the 21st century mom, she has a tattoo and she eats organic fruit. And I'm rolling my eyes thinking, this is what I have to draw. But instead of that, I have a scribble, I have a texture, I have a face, I have a foot or a hand or something. And I can start with that. So I'm never alone with a blank piece of paper or a blank screen. So that's where my workshop comes in. So rather than you having a brief and then your brain and a blank screen, you have in front of you a zillion drawings already made. And you can choose one or two and use them as a starting point. It's super practical. And say, oh, this could be her hair, or this could be her leg, or this could be her shopping bag.
Oh,
And then you can go from there. You go, oh, what could this be? It's like
yeah.
the guy that invented Velcro. He went walking in the woods. He got burrs stuck on his pants. He picked them up. He was playing with them. And, oh, what could this be? And then he invented Velcro. But what he didn't do was sit in a white laboratory with everything perfect and think, what the world needs is a new way to stick stuff together. And I'm going to be creative now and invent that. See,
Yeah.
that's the problem with problem solving. It's the kiss of death to try to do a good thing for me, because I invented this workshop because I'm so insecure. I felt like, in spite of the fact that I've been drawing all my life, every time I got a brief or an assignment, I was moody and cranky and I thought, you know, this is stupid. I was just like
Yeah.
that. So I needed a starting point, and then I was okay. And I worked like that my whole career, 30, 40 years, whatever it's been. But I didn't tell my clients I was doing that. There was no need to. It was just something personal that got me away from my own insecurities and my own feelings of, I'm not good at drawing, or this is the type of thing I'm not good at drawing, or the art director's an idiot. Why do I have to do this? Whatever. Instead of all that,
Yeah.
I had a whole, like, it's like walking into, like, you're a chef and you walk into the perfect pantry and there's every possible fruit, vegetable, meat and fish and condiments and seasonings and herbs, and you can have all of them. They're right there and they're all free and they're all there. It's a really great feeling, right? You can make
Absolutely.
anything. So
That's
that's
the
the
magic.
feeling that I like people to have.
Yeah, and it's so meaningful to get to give it to people who are just, they're constantly in that problem solving mode in the best case scenario, but more than likely are just pushing papers around, trying to push them on to the next functionary who also does a job that doesn't need to exist.
God,
That's
that sounds tragic. And that's why I feel very lucky, because I've managed to avoid having to do jobs like that. For me, it's always been the same, whether I'm painting or doing something with typography or graphic design, it's something that I deeply, deeply love and I'm really engaged in, and there's nothing I'd rather do.
yeah.
So it's a real fantastic thing to be able to spend your life doing something that you really enjoy, whatever it is.
Yeah. Like, what got you into design specifically? Like, was that like your college major or?
Well, that's funny that you asked. I always joke the same joke. I'm sorry to repeat it, but
People have heard my jokes over and over again, so they're
yeah, but
used to that.
that doesn't give me an excuse. But I always say I'm 67 and I still haven't picked a major. What happened to me at RISD, it was really difficult. you were supposed to, at this young age, choose a major. And I chose at first graphic design because I didn't really know what graphic design was, but I loved letters and typography. And I'd been looking at a lot of, Russian constructivist books and Dada typography. And, I just thought it was cool and beautiful. And I love letter forms.
Yeah.
And I also love words and love to write and respect writing. And I'm a grammar and spelling nerd too. So it all sort of fit together. So I went into graphic design, but this was the 70s. And, around, I guess this was 74, 75. And at that time in the graphic design department at RISD, Rhode Island School of Design, it was the Swiss style, which was originally from the Bauhaus
Yeah.
through Basel, Switzerland, and it was extremely dry and extremely academic, and everybody was using universe typeface only, and very grainy black and white photographs if they had any images, but it was very intellectual and academic, and there was no color, there was no humor. There was nothing fun about it, and I missed drawing. So I went into the illustration department. I transferred out and went into illustration.
Oh.
And there, unfortunately, it was doing like children's book stuff that was like cutesy, and they didn't understand why I had to have type in every drawing. And they got mad at me, after, I don't know, 2 months or something. I decided to go back to the graphic design department and say, look, I made a mistake. I want to go back to graphic design. So I spoke to the head of the department, and he said, well, you have to take an extra year.
Oh.
And I said, well, it's not like a bridge is going to fall on somebody's head. It's not like engineering. If I miss 2 months, it's only design. And then he got really mad, and he said, now you can't come back at all. So I went into painting. So I effectively
Wow.
got kicked out of graphic design. But in real life, I got the education that I needed because I do illustration, I do graphic design, and I do painting.
Yeah.
But I really sort of consider myself self-taught, mostly from old dusty books, because, in the painting department at RISD, they basically gave you a studio and left you alone, which was fine with me. But I always use typography in my painting and painting in my typography, if you want to put it that way. To me, there's a lot of, I wouldn't say overlap, but one thing sort of helps the other. And, I have paintings that are purely typographical, and then I also do portraits. That's the whole point of being any kind of artist,
Yeah.
or any kind of creative, is that here you are in a situation, whatever else is going on in your life, doesn't matter. You're free. Here is where you're free, and you can. In fact, I did a painting, and this made a big impression on me. I did a painting once. I live in Sweden part-time in Gothenburg, Sweden. It's a big port city, but there's a big crane, and it's beautiful. It's orange. And I did a painting of the crane and the word Göteborg, which is Gothenburg in Swedish. And I made this big oil painting, really, really big, that looked like basically like a poster. And somebody said, why are you making a big poster for Gothenburg? And I said, well, why not? That's what I felt like doing.
Yeah.
I love the city. I love the typography of the words. I love the umlaut over the O. I liked all of it, and I made a painting. Why shouldn't I make a painting that looks like a poster?
Sounds great to me.
Yeah.
I'm very into it.
So get lost, Leave me alone.
Yeah.
I'm free to do that, and you don't have to like it, but that's a good reason to do things, because you like it. People forget that.
Yeah.
People think you need a reason for everything, but because you like it is a perfectly good one. What also really upsets me is that, I would like, well, no, that's a lie. I was going to say a lie. I was going to say that I would like to be the kind of person, that wants to change the world, and they devote themselves to helping, cure the planet and everybody in it. I'm not that person. I'm basically an entertainer. I want to have fun, and I want other people to have fun. And I think that's why I'm here. And maybe that's not as valuable as somebody that's trying to cure a disease or end world hunger or address climate change in their work. But hopefully there's still some value in what I do. I think there is. I mean, if you
Yeah.
want to see the film Sullivan's Travels, it'll tell you everything. It's a Preston Sturges film, and the moral of that film is making a comedy is a worthwhile thing to do.
Yeah.
And I believe that with all my heart. And so, you know, I mean, it starts out with this director and during the Depression that wants to make the film called "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" about the homeless, all of the millions of homeless during the horrible Depression. And he wants to make the film by experiencing that for himself, a very serious documentary. And he ends up by making a comedy because he realizes that making that documentary about what everybody's going through is not really helping,
Yeah.
and that he, who is a rich film director, doesn't really have the right to do that in a way. And I think that
Yeah.
what I do is important
Yeah.
because in my writing, hopefully, my books are funny and make people laugh. So I think that's valuable.
Yeah.
And even if I'm the only one, I think my paintings are beautiful. And so that brings something to the world. So, hey, maybe it's not enough, or maybe I'm wrong, but I'm not good at the other stuff. And in fact, I've run into a lot of trouble because of this, because my recent book, How to Make Mistakes on Purpose, which has always been the title of my workshop that I've taught for over 30 years all over the world, How to Make Mistakes on Purpose. But I make the book, and because it has how to in the title, the publisher seemed to think it was some kind of a self-help book.
Oh.
And
Oh,
my next
God.
book, listen to this, my next book, no matter what it is, no matter what it's about, and of course I am writing one, the title is going to be called I Don't Want to Help Anybody. Just to be really clear. Because I think what's happened is that every book has to be a self-help book now.
Yeah. Like,
Every book in
it's
the whole
treated
world.
like that's the
A
only genre
self-help
that
cookbook.
sells. Yeah.
You can't, a self-help, sexy book. It's got to be, everything is a problem to be solved, and you're going
Yeah.
to solve it. It just, come on. If I really thought that, I'd just hang up my whatever. And right now, I just, no, my workshop actually does help people be creative,
Yeah.
but that's not, well, I don't want to make a thing out of that. And I don't want people to think it's some kind of, esoteric thing, or it's a very practical way to never be alone with a blank brain or a blank piece of paper, and to get started making new things and discovering new things, and doing things that you don't normally do. Uh, and to surprise yourself and to surprise other people.
Yeah.
And I think, yes, that's helpful, but believe it or not, this is how, ugh, I can't even say it. Well, the publisher, who shall remain nameless, Hachette, Hachette, my nameless publisher, put my audiobook version of How to Make Mistakes on Purpose, this is true, you can Google it, under parenting. I am a childless spinster. If there's anything I don't know about, it's parenting.
What? Now,
swear to God.
realize that the publishing industry is not well, but there's
Parenting.
no logic that could ever be likely.
Totally true. You could look it up. I'll send you the link.
I would love
Parenting.
to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow. Yeah, but I mean, I feel like though this part of this might be what goes back to like, where this like weird culture came from. This culture of like your job is your life. And like I think that's where some of this kind of stems from. Like that culture has popped up right at the same time as every company is just cutting themselves to the barest minimum, and it passed the barest minimum so that nobody is really paying attention to anything anymore because they can't. They're doing, they're printing out the airline tag that's coded on both sides so you can't actually write on it. They're classifying your audiobook as parenting and self-help separately. It's weird that it would genre jump the audiobook too.
And my editor, my editor at Hachette, and I quote, said, "Why would your book be in a museum bookstore? It's a book about creativity."
Where were they wanting to put it?
I think they wanted to just flush it down the toilet.
Oh
What they
God.
do, what publishers do, because we live in this desperate situation, especially with books, but with
Yeah.
every industry that's failing, like books and magazines and you name it, um, anything interesting really
Yeah.
is struggling. Uh, they publish, if they publish 100 books or 1,000 books, they hope one will hit, be a huge bestseller, and the rest can go hang,
Yeah.
and that's the truth. And they're just, it's just they're tossing out a net. They don't know. There's no personal relationship between writers and editors. I mean, of course, at the very top levels, if you're Stephen King or something, it's different. But if you're not, it's really it's never been easy to be a writer or an artist and get noticed. And who needs it? There's no
Yeah.
question the world doesn't owe me a living. But there's something that the internet, I think, accelerated, made a greater division between those that were seen and those who are not seen. Um, it's very hard to find a way, and I would like to find a way to completely bypass social media and the internet completely and go back in time, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But I kind of wish it could happen
God, me
because,
too.
in fact, I know a young woman. She's so lovely and she has the best smile I've ever seen. She's the daughter of some friends of mine in Philadelphia. Um, Her name is Neva. I'm going to say it just in case. I'm going to send her this. And she was, she's 20 something. She was looking for a waitress job in New York. She'd moved there from Philadelphia. She's a dancer. And she was telling me that, just to get a waitress job, you had to apply online and with forms and,
Oh,
like you
it's
have
a
to do
whole
everything
it's a
with a
whole
form. Right.
performance.
And
Yeah,
I
it's
said, "Oh, come
ridiculous.
on, walk into a restaurant and smile at them."
Yeah.
And that's exactly what she did. And she got a great job, but she had this incredible, but you can't email that. Like I said, I'm giving up, but what I'm giving up is trying so hard to get noticed. Because I have been trying hard, whether with my books or with everything else, to get I'd love to hold my workshops, big workshops for Google and Apple and make lots of money with big corporations inviting me. So what I'm not going to stop is making art and making books and making stuff. And even, like my next book, this memoir, this was the original what I wanted to publish with Hachette, which is really, really good and really, really funny. Um, and, maybe I'll have this Swedish publisher do it that, all their other books are in Swedish and it's a tiny, tiny publisher in a tiny, tiny country. Okay, it's great, great. It's the opposite of Hachette, which is the third biggest publisher in the world, which didn't do me any favors. I thought at first, oh, now I've hit the big time, I thought,
Yeah.
but I'd rather go with a smaller publisher and maybe an infinitesimally small one. I'm going to do the opposite, like George and Seinfeld. I'm going to do the opposite.
Full on zine next
Exactly.
time. Self-publish.
Exactly.
I mean, that's kind of there's something beautiful to that though. Like because then you're fully in control. You don't have to worry about editors. You don't have to worry
Yeah.
about,
Yeah.
like marketing budgets or something.
There
Or
is no budget.
no. It's like it's print on demand, so like you
Yeah,
don't have to worry
yeah.
about like what size the press run's going to be or anything like that. Like
So we'll see. But the book that's out now, the Mistakes on Purpose book, I'm really, really proud of. And
yes.
during this thing at Bend, everybody's that's doing the workshop is going to get a copy, which is great. And I'm going to give away some signed copies, but I really love this book. So I am
It's
sad that, it didn't sell more. And I hope that if you've made it this far in the podcast, you really should get it.
it's
How to Make
really
Mistakes on Purpose.
funny.
It's really fun book.
It's
And I promise, like I said, I don't want to help anybody. It's not a self-help book, but it's a really funny book, and I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, I picked it up and I like it's a really easy read. It's really like, it's really whether you're new to design
And there's a
or
lot
like
of nudity
experience.
in it.
I just,
And recipes.
recipes, nudity.
What more could you want?
Yeah, I mean, just like it should be flying off the shelves by all accounts.
There are no shelves anymore.
No, that's sort of the problem. Have you like been in like a Barnes and Noble or anything lately? Because I think
Uh,
that's also part of this problem.
yeah, absolutely.
It's all like figurines and stuff.
I know. There's no
It's
book.
really
You know what's
weird.
funny? What my other book, the All the Wrong People Have Self-Esteem, which was a young adult book, the subtitle is an inappropriate book for young ladies or anybody else. But there was actually a wonderful editor at Bloomsbury that asked me to do the book because I'd done another book for Chronicle called New York Notebook, and she liked the way it looked, and she thought it would be great for me to do a teenage book, so I did. And that was a really fun book, but nobody knew where that belonged, including me. Like when I wrote it, when I did it, I wasn't thinking about the first question that anybody asks now is, what's the audience? It was a question that never crossed my mind. I did the most funny, best looking book I could imagine doing. What I thought was a wonderful book. I didn't care, or think about that to me, that seems backwards to think about the audience first and then try to please them. It seems
Yeah.
backwards. Anyway, so I did this book and it literally didn't fit on the shelf because that year, it was 2008, the same week that Lehman Brothers crashed, but it didn't fit on the shelves at Barnes and Noble because the shelves there were made for Gossip Girl, which that year was a huge in the young adult, that's basically all they sold. So the shelves were designed, and my book was like,
Wow.
11 inches tall. It was like, oh, is this an art book? Is this a humor book? Is this a teenage book? Is this because it had self-esteem in the title. People thought that was a self-help book.
Oh God.
I
So
know.
the judging of the book by its cover, it's sort of a across the board
It's a
problem.
toughie. Yeah.
It's really the bookstores that
Yeah.
are
But I'm telling you,
doing
my
the
next
worst
book
job of it.
titled, I Don't Want to Help Anybody. That's going to solve that problem. That's going to nip it right in the bud.
Yes. Go out and find I don't want to help anybody. We're not going to help you find it. You got to look
No,
for it
exactly.
yourself. Um I love that title so much. It's really a delight. But like a lot of your focus is on, at least in the book, making mistakes.
Mhm.
What what sort of drew you to that as a subject other than like wanting to open it up
Well, it
and
wasn't
free
like
people?
drawing me as a it was more like this. Like
Yeah.
35 years ago, I was teaching this class at Camberwell, which is a really good art school in London. And just for fun, because I was sort of bored myself, I had them just draw as fast as they could, as much stuff as they could, and just using black and white. And it sort of evolved from that class, doing these workshops where I was getting the participants, the students, whoever, to work in a way, the way that I've been working, which was rather than, like I said, trying to make one good thing, just having like a pantry or an arsenal or a resource of a
Yeah.
zillion drawings of stuff, all kinds of stuff, numbers, letters, textures, pictures of animals and people and every possible object right there so that you could already have one to start with. I'd been doing that for years, but I'd never taught that way. So that class in Camberwell led to me doing workshops, which I've done in Italy and Sweden and Germany and all over. And like I said, for 35 years. So I teach, it depends, maybe 8 workshops a year or 10 or whatever it is. And sometimes there's 20 people, sometimes there's 200 people, sometimes I get paid a whole lot and it's a big corporation, sometimes it's a little art school. It's all over the map, But they all have in common that, it's a really about a way of it's a modus operandi. It's not a drawing class. It's not a graphic design class. It's about a way of thinking that is different from the normal problem solving, which I'm not against.
Yeah.
You have to do problem solving. Problem solving is going to be always 99% of everything. But this is just one day in your life where you do it a different way. You have a different approach. You learn a different way of doing something that is not problem solving. It is creating an arsenal
Yeah.
that will help you with whatever job you have to do. And in fact, I have a really good example that for, I don't know, it was about, 15 years ago, there was a radio show, Studio 360, with Kurt Anderson
Oh,
on
yeah.
PRI. Yeah. So Kurt Anderson was the MC at this AIGA event that I was teaching the workshop, and he took the workshop and he enjoyed it and thought it was great. So he invited me to do it for his staff at the radio. And at first thought it was going to be on the radio, and it's a totally visual thing. So I thought that's interesting. But anyway, but we did
An
this,
inherently
and
flawed idea,
yeah,
some might
his
say.
producer called me like a week before I was going to go in and do this. And so he was saying, he asked me a bunch of questions on the phone, and he said, back then people made phone calls. So he asked me all kinds of questions, and then he said, well, what if you're not like an artist or a designer? How is this helpful, or what's the point if you're not in that world? And I said, well, let's say you're a radio producer. So he says, oh, okay, I'm listening, because he's a radio producer. And I say, well, part of your job apparently is to ask me, Laurie Rosenwald, what's going to happen when you come in with this workshop thing, and what's the point of da, da, da. And I said, but and those are all good questions. You could ask me, that's problem solving. You could ask me, where did you go to school? Or how did you come up with the idea for the workshop? Or many good questions. That's problem solving, and that's not going anywhere. That's a good thing. But let's say just for one question, you pick up something that's on your desk and let that be the question.
Yes.
A random thing. Random is the key word. And I said, I'm going to do that now. So I reached over on my desk and I had a novel I was reading, and I opened it to a random page. And the first 2 words on the top left corner were gold bullion, like, gold bars of gold.
Yeah.
Right? So I said, okay, Laurie, are you raking in the big bucks doing this for corporate offsites and, stuff like that? Or is this like more of an art school thing, or, Now, that might not be a great question, but it is probably a question he wouldn't have asked.
Yeah.
And that is, well, gold. That is valuable. To do something you don't do, to ask the question you don't ask, to make the thing you don't make, or whatever, to jolt you. It's literally sabotage. The word sabotage was throwing a shoe into the machine. The sabot that's what it is. That you need to get somewhere new. It requires that you mess something up.
Yeah.
And you bring in an element of randomness and chance. And especially in our digital world where everything is so perfect and people are really good at their jobs and they get really good at certain programs and their expertise is boundless. But what happens is that's good when you're 20 or maybe 30 or 40 even. But when you're 50 or 60 or maybe 40, 50, and you've been doing the same job and being really good at it for all these years, what new thing have you discovered? You
Yeah.
have to do something that it's not really the word. I use the word mistake because it's fun. It's not really a mistake. You have to do something random. You have to sabotage your own skill set and your own way of thinking. And that is my job. That's what I do in my workshops, is to bring in the random for people in a digital perfect world where people are good at their jobs, that, you want to please your boss or your teacher, whoever it is, that's fine. But if you repeat that over and over and over a number of years, it becomes pretty stale and you don't get anywhere new.
Yeah.
So that's the point of the workshop.
Yeah, you fall
It's a
into
way
patterns.
of bringing in something that'll could change everything.
Yeah.
Or maybe nothing. You might not discover anything. But if you keep doing exactly the same thing the same way your whole career, you definitely won't. Right?
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is at least gives you a chance to make like penicillin was dirty dishes. Big people working in big pharma are not experiencing this now.
No.
What Fleming did was he went literally on vacation for 2 weeks and left some stuff in the sink. And these petri dishes got all moldy, and one mold was resisting the other mold. And he noticed this when he came back because he was a problem solver and he was trained to understand and notice things. He was a scientist, it wasn't just anybody. And he said, that's it. What could this be? And it was penicillin that saved zillions of lives. So I think we need to bring back at least the chance for something messed up and mistakey or random to help us.
I completely agree with that. And I like that element of chaos is such a great creative fuel. Like, you need something outside of yourself sometimes that just pushes you in a direction.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's a restriction, but sometimes it's just like
because it's very human to go with what is familiar and comfortable, including me. I mean, I'm just like everybody else. I'm no different. I realized that, I needed to shake things up, because if left to my own devices, I'll just sit on a sofa watching Seinfeld for the rest of my life and do nothing.
It's great, though.
It's really, really nice, What's not to like?
I sounds like a dream to me, honestly. Just hanging out in Sweden watching Seinfeld.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm there now. It sounds like an incredible workshop. You're doing one here at Ben Design.
Yep.
If people potentially have a place that could host a workshop, where would they go to kind of contact you and sign
They
up
would
for?
contact me at my website, which is not my last name. My name's Laurie Rosenwald, but my workshop and everything else is listed on Rosenworld, ROSENWORLD.com. And they could reach me through that and find out about the workshop through that. And I hope that they do, in fact.
Yes. And that's also a great place to go if you want to find out more about Laurie's books. You can probably find How to Make Mistakes on Purpose potentially in your local bookstore. I know I found mine in Powell's here in Portland.
Good.
But
that's a great bookstore.
I've been hard to beat that as a bookstore.
Love Powell's.
But if you're not so lucky to have a
you can definitely get it online.
You can certainly get it online. It will be in a different section depending on if you're looking for an audiobook or traditional book. But look around. Type it into the search field. I find that's a good way to find specific things. Oh, is there anything else that you would want to plug?
Well, yeah, in a way. I'm looking for the right editor, and that editor will find me the right publisher. Somebody that thinks that the way that I write is funny and gets it. That is what I'm hoping to find, because I frankly would rather go the traditional route, but with a smaller publisher for my next book, which is written and designed and all ready to go.
Oh, shit.
So that's something I would really like to find out, So I was looking actually in the UK for the right publisher, because all of the writers that I love are British, or not all, but most. And, I always say that P.G. Wodehouse is my therapist. So that's might explain a lot. But I think that is what's very important to me is my next book, which is called Memoir, spelled MEMWAH, which may be a bad idea. Because, it's a New Yorkie, I'm a New York Jew, memoir. But not everybody gets it when they see it written down. Like, for instance, my friends in Sweden that speak perfect English, they look at it, it means absolutely nothing. So I'm not so sure that's the right title. But I'm looking for the kind of editor that will tell me, yes, that's a great idea, or no, forget it. And somebody that I can listen to.
Yeah, if there's editors out here listening to this and you wanna help make this book a reality, put it out in the world, I would love that a lot.
I actually also think this is very ambitious, but don't you think Well, this is a loaded question, but don't you think that How to Make Mistakes on Purpose would be a great TV show?
I think so. Absolutely.
I do too. I think that it opens up a whole world of possibilities.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want it to be like a cooking show. I don't like reality TV. I want a scripted thing, but based on people's stories and experiences about mistakes that changed things, that made, there's so many great stories, not only in terms of scientific discovery, like everybody knows about Post-it notes and Velcro and penicillin, but there's a zillion other stories that people have about mistakes that are so entertaining and so much fun. So I would love to do a show about that too.
Yes. And I think there needs to be more humor and creativity combined in media just generally, which I think probably the audience for this
You're
show
darn
already
tootin'.
knows. Well, thank you so much for being here, Laurie.
It was a great pleasure.
I really appreciated it. And thank you to the person who's listening to this. Hi, thank you. If you like this show and I don't know, maybe you're hearing it for the first time, maybe you're a long-time listener, first-time caller, or some other thing, why not subscribe to it in your podcast player of choice? That's a great way to make sure that you receive it. You can get to so very many of them, and God, there's so many of them out there, by visiting our pretty new website, dididothat.design. That's also where you can find some good images that go along with each and every episode, which I think they're funny. I think they're funny. This sounds defensive the way that I'm saying it, but no one is disputing it. And if you want these images delivered to you on a platform that, let's say it seems like it's increasingly antagonistic towards me, but in fairness, I'm increasingly antagonistic towards it. You can follow me on Instagram or Twitter. And again, you can get to both of those from the website. This is Did I Do That? I am Sean Schumacher. And as we always say at the close of every episode,
Rutabaga?
All right, rutabaga. Okay, bye.
I'll give you a level real quick. I don't mind.
See?
Isn't it though?
At
least I do one thing
That's
perfectly.
a perfect level. Exceptional
My
level.
levels are impeccable. You can't beat those levels.
Yeah, your baggage gets lost, but you cannot beat those levels. These are top tier levels.